Hello and welcome. Thank you for joining me for another card making tutorial. This is Angie. Today we're going to create an emboss resist card. The equipment you'll require to complete this card are some watercolors. I'm using Ken Oliver colourbursts, a floral stamp either with dies, or you can hand cut a few of the main elements and elevate those instead of having matching dies. To emboss, you'll require some sticky embossing ink, some embossing powder and a heat tool, water in a spray bottle. I have a little perfect pearls in mine, a stamp positioner, a card front, and a card base to mount the finished panel. To get started, I'm placing the card front inside my stamping platform, choosing a position for the stamp, and then preparing the surface with an emboss resist tool. I use the EK Success tool, but you can use whatever you have. I am making sure to get a really good layer of the embossing ink onto the stamp because you want to make sure you're getting good coverage or the embossing powder won't stick to it. I generally like to double stamp mine, but if I can see that I've got a really good image, one time is enough. I then apply the powder over the full image, give that a good shake off, tilt it in the light to make sure that all the stamped area is covered. Once I'm happy that it's covered, I will then pop away the embossing powder. And you would have seen that I started my heat gun at the beginning of applying the embossing powder. That's so that the heat gun was ready to go once I was at that stage. So once it's all fully heated up, I will start to melt the powder. You'll see it goes from sort of a matte finish to a very shiny melted finish. I will heat from both the front and the back to avoid warping, and move the heat tool around quite a bit to make sure not to burn any of the embossing powder. And you can see once it's melted how much easier it is to actually see the image. Then I get to the fun part. Because these are colour bursts, I am just choosing to scatter the powder over the areas of the card where I'm wanting that particular colour. So I'm focusing the green around the leaves, the yellow around a handful of the flowers that I think will look good in that colour. And once I'm finished sort of applying the powder to all the floral areas, you'll really see the magic of the colour bursts. These tap out quite easily, but I did notice when I purchased mine, my purple, which is one of my favorite colors, was quite hard on the inside. So I struggle quite a bit to get any color out of that one, unfortunately. But all the other colors work great, and I can get the purple going when I persist at it. And this is what I mean. You spray the water from a bit of a distance and you see how much it just comes to life. It brings the whole image to life, and you've got that emboss resist as well, where the embossing powder is. The color doesn't sink in, so that gives you that vibrant white underneath. Then, because I'm a little bit impatient and always short on time, I use my heat tool on a low setting just to help dry the panel, and I try to avoid as much warping as I can, because obviously there's a lot of water applied to the cardstock, which is watercolor cardstock as well. Then I choose a few of the floral and leaf panels that I know, the stamps that I know I've got the matching dies for, so that I can elevate those off the card and really give it a bit of dimension. So I'm doing the same process here of preparing the area, applying the embossing powder, melting it with my heat tool, cleaning up as I go. And then shortly, once it's all melted, you'll see me applying the colour again as well. Then I'm choosing colours that match the floral elements that I'm going to be raising, so that once they're cut and I am placing them on the panel, they sort of tie into the background and kind of look a bit continuous. I'm pretty sure the paper that I was using for these little raised bits was not watercolor paper, so it does sort of take the color a little bit differently than the water paper does, but it's such small elements, it didn't really bother me too much, and it didn't really impact the finished product too much. Again, I'm using my heat tool on a low setting to try and dry the elements quickly, as I'm on a tight time frame as always to get this card completed before I have to pack up. So now the fun of assembling the card front. I'm placing the card back into the stamping platform, and I've chosen a sentiment from the stamp set. This is just a high stamp, which is great because it means that I could use this card for many different occasions, and I'm using my Hero Arts black ink cube, mini ink cube, to stamp that, and I love that ink because it just always stamps so crisp every time. I don't even have to double stamp it, which is wonderful. So now I'm going to cut the little elements that are going to be raised off the card. I'm using my magnetic platform, which is great because that means I don't need to go digging for any washi tape or anything like that, or worrying about the dies moving in the platform. So once I'm happy that the dies are correctly lined up, I'll run that through my Spellbinders Platinum 6 machine. And generally this machine just cuts so well that I usually only need one pass, and as you can see, they cut through perfectly. So next job is to decide where I'm going to place them on the card. Kind of feel like a bit of a florist doing a flower arrangement. But I think I come to a decision around about here, and then move the pieces off so I can mount the card front onto the card base, get it nice and flat, corner to corner. I'm using a wet adhesive this time. You can use a wet or a dry adhesive, it doesn't really matter, just whatever suits you. And then now I will use some foam tape to mount the 3 elements onto the card. This just gives it a bit of dimension. So I'm sticking with what I decided before mounting the card front on. And you got to be careful to make sure that you're not seeing the foam tape pop up from underneath or leaving any of the adhesive out. So looks like I'm about done there. Very happy with how this card turned out. This is one I've recreated after making one in the past, but it was just something that gets my creative juices going. If you haven't got a guillotine, I highly recommend them. They just cut the cardstock perfectly, and it means any little errors with placement of your card can be quickly fixed. And voila! So now I'll give you a moment to admire the finished card. Didn't it turn out beautiful? You can see the dimension that the foam gives, the wonderful colour from those colour bursts, and the beautiful shine from that embossing powder. While you could apply ink splatter or whatever, this card really is not in want of anything. It is definitely a finished, complete card, and I just love it. I'm about to pop up a card image of another same style card that I made using the same stamp set, but you'll notice on this one I actually used my ink blending tools over the embossing. Again, a emboss resist technique, but this is just done with normal ink blending over the embossing to achieve the same emboss resist look. And you can also do, again, see that I've done like an ink splatter in the background and applied a few gems and sequins. Happy crafting. I hope you enjoyed the video.